Single family homes in East Vancouver are almost topping out at $2 million. We are so close to all-time highs, yet the data shows that we are nearing buyer market conditions. On Vancouver's west side, the detached market is definitely on a resurgence path back to all-time highs. We have the data in for July. This is your Vancouver detached single family home market update. We're going to be going into all the details that you need to know to make those important decisions, whether you're looking to buy, sell, relocate, or invest in my beautiful city of Vancouver. My name is Kyle Mark, your Vancouver Realtor, and we're going to be going through all the important data to help you with your due diligence. We are just going to be looking at all the raw data. So what I'm going to pull up on screen here first is just a comparison so that you know exactly how the Vancouver East and West markets compare to the rest of Greater Vancouver as well as the Fraser Valley. So as I pull up the data here on screen, this is a 3-year trend line, and these are using median price points, okay? So depending on the data that you look at, there are usually 3 different types of data points. There's the median price point, there's the HPI, a home pricing index that the board uses, or the average price point. I myself like to look at the median pricing because I feel like it's the best measure in terms of what properties are going for. Jumping in here, blue right here denotes Vancouver's West, gray over top here, Vancouver East, yellow, the Fraser Valley, and green, the Greater Vancouver board. So this is a really good telltale sign. These are using median data points to show you what's been going on over the last 3 years, especially depending on where you're wanting to look at and how your investment is carrying. This is a really good barometer here. And right off the top, we mentioned Vancouver West had these deviations. You can see from 2022 to 23, there was an 8.3% drop in price point. People in 2023 were getting some really good value in 2023, and now you can see that there's a 15.4% price point increase when it comes to year. So some really nice appreciation. Now when you're talking about homes that are averaging just over 3.6 million, 15% is quite dramatic. You know, you're looking at just under $500,000. So investors or homeowners did really well. Vancouver East has been staying pretty flat, with you know, some modest gains, you know, 3.3% and 4.8%. We are dealing in these price points. It really starts to add up, and you can see that just from 2022 to 2024, there's about a $150,000 increase in price point when it comes to those properties. The Fraser Valley has pretty much stayed right on par. A drop here in 2024, 6.4% drop. So it's actually lower than what it was in 2022. So these are really important parameters here, and I like to lay out these bar graphs so you can exactly see right off the hop how each area is doing when it comes to your median price point, because that at the end of the day is what we care about the most. Let's move on over to Vancouver's East detached market so we can pick out some of the winners and the losers when it comes to where you should be investing your money or where you should be if you're looking to sell. So as you bring up the data here for Vancouver East, and you can see here on the board with these numbers here, it actually shows that we've crested over the $2 million mark, just under 2.1. But you can see that pricing in the last 13 months, we are at a top of mind price point at $2,097,500. Similar to a lot of the recent market data that we've been going over, we still have this trend line where we're seeing an increase in inventory. The spike hasn't been as high. We have 565 properties that are currently active for inventory. Sales though have dropped down over the last 2 months. So this divide is getting wider and wider. And why this divide is so important is because the wider that divide is, the better opportunity you have as a buyer to get into these markets. When we look at the overall conditions, we can see that homes are selling on average 100% of list price on Vancouver's east side. The most active price point between 1.25 and 1.5, 38% high seller market conditions, obviously, but there's not a lot of choices that you will get in those price points. Buyers' best bets, if you're a buyer, 2.5 to 2.7 million, or the $3 to $4 million market in the Collingwood, Renfrew Heights, South Vancouver, and Victoria areas. Obviously, if you're looking at these $2.5 to $2.75 million properties or $3 to $4 million on Vancouver's east side, you are getting a very nice home. Or these are probably, you know, I mentioned Collingwood here. There's a lot of land assemblies that are going on right now with homeowners just having these outrageous price expectations for their properties, and that's why a lot are sitting. You'll see it right here, 114 inventory with just 2 sales. Very bad market for Collingwood, but it is those land assemblies that are keeping it down. Seller's best bets. If you are a seller out there on Vancouver's east side, selling homes in Renfrew and 5 to 6 bedroom properties. As we go into specific areas in terms of winners and losers, we can see that there isn't a ton of data. You can see that if we look at inventory and solds, there's a lot of single digit values, and that comes down to that 74 sales number for the month of June. There just isn't a lot of data out there. With that being said, when we look at the sales to active ratio, we are sitting at 13% here. For Vancouver East, we're almost getting into those buyer market conditions. As a buyer, that's something that should perk your ear up and something that you want to take notice of, because that's when you can start getting some good value. We went over the numbers in Vancouver's west side with a lot of property owners on Vancouver's west side taking advantage of a good opportunity and purchasing in there. When it comes to sales to active ratio, and what is surprising, we're almost at all-time highs in Vancouver's east side. But as you can see, and this is the green line right here that shows the sales to active ratio, and you can see that since March of this year, we were almost getting into seller market conditions, and now we've had a couple consecutive months of it dropping, and we're getting so close to buyer market conditions. Anything that is less than 12% on that sales to active ratio, so less than 12 homes out of 100 being sold, we are getting into that buyer's territory, and you can see that here with the green line. As we move forward to active price bands where you can have some opportunity, you know, anywhere from that $2.5 million to $4 million mark, you're heavy into buyer market conditions, 3%, 8%, 3%. So, you know, if you pair those price points in some of these areas over here, when it comes to the detached market, you know, Collingwood, Renfrew Heights, Knight Street, you know, you are going to have a lot of options out there. On the flip side, when we talk about competition in the marketplace, you can see that South Marine sitting at 50%, Renfrew at 29%, Main Street 26%, Hastings 33%. So a lot are still in seller market conditions, but keep in mind there's not a lot of data to pull from, and there's not a lot of selection. We can see that in Renfrew, you know, there's 49 inventory, so that's a decent amount there, but there is a lot of opportunity out there for a buyer in the detached market. When we break things down in terms of inventory, solds, days on market, we can see that on average, homes are still at 9% days on market, an exact mirror of May. And we can see that price parameters, when it comes to price point on a month-to-month basis, it improved slightly by 4% on a month-to-month basis. So we got some interesting data here just with this spread of inventory going into buyer's market conditions, but still property values still remain very, very, very high. As we bring in this final graph on Vancouver's east side, green shows the detached market, and you can see that we had an all-time high here in 2022, and we're just about to get there again. We've had several months where pricing is increasing, and what is going to happen moving forward, by the time this video comes out, we're going to be really close to the Bank of Canada's next policy rate announcement. The inflationary numbers that came out this week, we saw a drop from the 2.9% in June to 2.7%. That was going to be a big indicator of what the Bank of Canada was going to do. It is now looking like they are going to drop the rate again in July, on July 24th specifically. Before the inflation data came out, there was about a 60% chance of a reduction in policy rate. Now that number is likely going to increase, and I think we are going to see another reduction. So as we continue to see these reductions come and compound on each other, it's going to really light the fire under buyers, because there's a ton of buyers that are sitting on the fence waiting to see what happens here. So we know that we can only work with what we have in the real estate market a day or a week at a time. Trying to prognosticate what's going to happen next month or next year is really impossible. But when we look at the data now with the spread between inventory and solds, the buyer market conditions, this is a really good time for buyers to get into the East Vancouver market. If you're selling, there are still good pockets for you to sell. It all comes down to price and marketing. But if you have any of those interests, whether you're looking to buy or sell, make sure you book that strategy call with me. It's in the description below. Super easy to get a hold of, and I am here to help. Let's get into Vancouver's west side and go over some of the data that we've been seeing on the ground. We can see that similarly to Vancouver's east side, we're sitting at a 13% sales to active ratio. So balanced market conditions, but trending downward into those buyer market conditions. Remember, balanced market conditions are between 12 to 20%. The west side market is at 13. Homes are selling on average 2% below list price. The most active price band is between that 2.25 million to 2.5 million, sitting at a 29% sales to active ratio. Buyers' best bets, homes sitting at $7.5 million and Marpole, South Granville, and minimum 7 properties if you are a seller. Homes selling in Dunbar, Mackenzie Heights, and 3 to 4 bedroom properties. So as we look at some of the pricing here, we are not at the peak like we are close to with Vancouver's East Side, but we're certainly getting up there. In December and August of last year, we're right around that $4 million mark. We're sitting at 3.634 million for the average price point on Vancouver's West Side, but it's been staying pretty flat since February. We have seen since December another increase in inventory, sitting at 643 with just 82 sales, and this gap, similarly to pretty much every other sub area in Vancouver, is widening as well. Not as quickly as Vancouver's East Side, but widening nonetheless. If we look at the graph here, you can see that the green line denotes the sales to active ratio for Vancouver's West Side, and we're getting into those buyer market conditions. It hasn't been able to buck the trend out of that 12 to 20%. We're midway through balanced market conditions of May of last year, but there has been an up and down in terms of the conditions. But even with that being said, pricing has still remained strong on Vancouver's West Side. If we look at some of the areas, the winners and losers when it comes to areas in Vancouver's West Side, we can see that, Fairview 33%, but like I said, single digit data, not a lot out there. Dunbar 24%. On the flip side, when we look at some good opportunities for you to get into the marketplace, we can see that South Granville, 82 options, 5% sales to active ratio, something in and around there. It's a nice area. There's going to be some good opportunity in there. Marpole, 25 inventory, just 1 sale, sitting at 4%, right? So there's, depending on where you're looking, there are opportunities on Vancouver's West Side. If we look at price band, not a lot of data up until the $2 million mark, but anything from 2 million all the way up to 3 million, you are in seller market conditions. So those are going to be entry-level homes on Vancouver's East Side, likely building lots. With the changes from the province regarding land use, a lot of these properties, and the reason why I think they're in seller market conditions, are prospective developers and investors wanting to pick up some of these properties before we start to see how this will increase property pricing. As we know, depending on the lot size, all of a sudden you can get upwards of 6 townhomes on a property on Vancouver's West Side because they have some bigger lots. So now with those 6 townhomes that can sell for $1 million at least, if not more, you now have a valuation of around $6 million of revenue on one parcel. That is going to be falling down to the homeowner in some capacity, and it will in some cases increase price points. So some of these bigger lots, no matter where you live, Vancouver's East Side, West Side, Burnaby, there is going to be advantages to holding these properties and selling them. Not all will appeal to every single builder, but it's going to take some time to see how this all plays out with all the land use, because those changes have just come to fruition and we have to see how it's going to work itself through the pipeline. When we get into balanced market conditions from that 3 million all the way up to that $4-5 million mark, you're pretty even-handed when it comes to that price band. As you get into the $4.5 million range and above, now you're getting into essentially buyer market conditions, and we can see that there is some opportunity if you have that amount of money available to you. Days on market, when we look at increases month to month, there was a 2% increase when it comes to price point of detached homes on Vancouver's West Side, going from 3.557 million to 3.634 in just 1 month. Days on market increased just a little bit, where homes are now sitting at 15 days on market, still very, very quickly. If you can sell your home on average in around 2 weeks, that is really good for you and where you want to be, definitely as a seller. Finally, as we get into the lifelong graph when it comes to pricing on Vancouver's West Side, you can see that where we are now, we're almost getting back to that all-time high. We're in that 90th plus percentile in terms of pricing. You can see this huge drop. This was right around COVID, where homes were selling on average under $3 million. So there are some people who were able to get in that 2019-20 who've made, $1 million or so, or even more, just by holding the property. And that's something that I want you all to keep in mind. When you start to see some of these big dips here, it doesn't last long before it jumps right back up. You can see all the way from 2008, there's a couple months of a drop, and then boom, it shoots up. These are markers that you need to be really cognizant of and working with your realtor to understand, because if you're looking for value, it doesn't last long. Obviously, this was a longer divide here in and around 2019-20 because of COVID. But when you look at the history here, these drops, they don't last very long. It's just a few months, 5 to 6 months, and then boom, it shoots back up and ends up surpassing the last all-time high. Here's your market update for July. This is all the data from June. I hope this this is helpful for you. If you're looking to buy, sell, invest, or relocate to my beautiful city, Vancouver, make that strategy call with me. Book a call. Let's get you going on your goals, and let's work together to get you successful when it comes to Vancouver real estate.